It's Thursday, August 1st, 2024, and it makes sense that a lot of this video is going to be focused on the tropics because, August and September, that's our tropical weather time frame, and things are really starting to pick up out there. We are going to talk about more than just the tropics, though. You see this big swirling system up here, another big mid-latitude cyclone here in the middle of summer that is going to cause some more problems up in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, down into the Ohio Valley. More storms are possible over the next few days. We're going to talk about those as well. But first, my goodness, this is something that we have to really pay attention to over the next little bit. What will likely soon be Tropical Depression or Tropical Storm Debbie is really getting its act together down here near the Bahamas. This is well off to the south and east of the lower 48 right now, and it's not very organized at this very moment. However, all of these thunderstorms that are popping up here are going to try to wrap around that central area of low pressure as soon as, tomorrow, and we're going to start to see a more traditional look to this storm, and I think very quickly this will turn into a tropical storm and eventually a hurricane. The latest spaghetti plots are showing a very familiar path here. This is going to go just to the north of Cuba. Once it gets into the area between Florida and Cuba, though, this is where no weather model, no meteorologist anywhere on Earth knows what's going to happen next. You see this squished spider look to the different possible tracks here? This is what we tend to see whenever there's a lot of uncertainty in the forecast. Right now, we're seeing potential tracks that take this thing all the way over to Louisiana. Some of them make landfall near Miami, Florida, and then go out to sea. Like, the cone of uncertainty with this storm right now is unbelievably large. And the unfortunate thing about that is we're not too far away from this being on our front door, okay? This makes landfall in Florida, if it, goes the way that we think it might go, as early as Monday of next week, okay? So we've got to watch this extremely closely this weekend and give you lots of updates because things are going to change rapidly. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has a 60% chance of this developing into something named somewhere over here near Cuba. It's going to go into the Gulf of Mexico more than likely, and then from there, once again, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But if I live in Florida, if I live, even on the, Gulf Coast side of Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, I'm paying very close attention to this one because this might be our first storm that we really have to pay attention to this year up here. Now, once again, none of the models really have a good handle on what's going to happen next with this storm, but one of the models that I really like to look at this time period, outside of the specified hurricane models, is the GFS. GFS normally does a pretty good job when we're this far out, and, it does the same thing as the rest of these. It takes the storm up into the space between Cuba and Florida, and then from there, we get a look at what the deterministic model thinks is going to happen next. And just watch this. It goes right up towards the Big Bend of Florida, and then it goes up towards the Panhandle, and watch this. It stalls. It literally stays still. It continues to strengthen on the coast. It backs off a little bit, and then boom, goes over towards Louisiana. This would be obviously a worst case scenario. This would cause unprecedented flooding and just all kinds of bad things from the Pensacola area over towards New Orleans and Mobile. The good news is, out of all the possible things that could happen with this storm, I think that this scenario is one of the most unlikely, okay? I just wanted to show you how different the models are right now. Everyone is showing something very, very different, but this is just one of the many possibilities that we could see here. Now, the thing is they all are showing a storm, probably of hurricane intensity in the Gulf of Mexico here. So I do think that this is something that we are going to have to deal with late this weekend into early next week. So there's not a lot else I can do right now other than speculate. So I'm going to update you guys again this weekend, maybe even tomorrow afternoon with whatever latest information we have. But in the meantime, let's step forward a little bit and talk about the storms that we're going to experience in the mainland over the next couple of days. Today, we've got a slight risk of severe weather for 12 million people in the Ohio Valley. Main threat's going to be wind and heavy rain. The tornado threat is very, very low with this particular setup. Here's what the radar could look like around 5 p.m. Eastern today. Once again, strong storms forming from Ohio back through Illinois, turning into a squall line of damaging winds moving through Louisville, Cincinnati, probably around 6 or 7. Those will get down to, let's say, Lexington, Kentucky around 8 or 9. And then we're going to continue to see strong storms around Columbus, Ohio, Cleveland maybe later into the evening around 10 p.m. or so. So you can see the scattered nature of these storms is, somewhat unpredictable. And also the supercellular nature is not the main feature here. We're talking about at some point a cluster of storms is going to form. The cool air that forms behind those storms because of the rain is going to push them forward. They're going to fan out into a big line, and probably Louisville and Cincinnati up towards Columbus will be the hardest hit areas with some damaging winds. The storms really calm down though as we go into the overnight and early morning periods. They do look like they're going to try to re-spark up though as we go into Friday. Scattered thunderstorms. We're not really expecting much in the way of severe weather on Friday or Saturday, but we do have that marginal risk of severe weather for all the areas in the green there. Tomorrow, 5% wind threat, nothing crazy there. And then on our day 3 outlook, once again, about 50-something million people under the gun for garden variety springtime showers and thunderstorms as a result of this storm system that's moving through. Now, there is going to be another one that comes after that, and we'll talk about that after the hurricane more than likely, but things are going to ramp up once again. So another thing that's going to happen over the next little bit is our heat wave in the north central U.S. is going to get a little squashed. So we've been dealing with some pretty big time heat over here in the plains. Heat warnings are in effect right now in Oklahoma, for example, for heat indexes up to 115 degrees in some places. But watch what happens here as this next system comes down from Canada. Lots of cooler temperatures are going to be moving into places like North and South Dakota over towards Wisconsin. We're still going to be very hot just to the south of that, but eventually that cool air is going to spread out over a larger area. Now, way back towards August 6th, we're still talking about it being a little bit reserved for our Great Lakes and upper Midwest areas, but I do think that over time, more of the central and eastern U.S. is going to see a break from the oppressive hot weather, I think, as a result of this. So big time pattern change on the way there. And during that transition, there probably will be some stronger storms that form along that boundary between cool and warm air as well. And that'll be our next severe weather situation that we have to cover. Climate Prediction Center outlook shows this beautifully. The 8 to 14 day temperature probability shows things being quite warmer than average in the southeast and over here in the west. And then you see that big lobe of cooler air that's going to be dominating, especially between 10 and 14 days from now up here in the north central U.S. I think that this is going to expand as the outlooks, talk about more dates in the future. Who's getting the most rainfall over the next week? Well, it looks like Florida is definitely on the map there, because whatever happens with this disturbance that's eventually going to likely cause tropical depression Debbie, whether it turns into a hurricane or not, the moisture associated with that is going to get dumped on Florida. So we do expect there to be lots of rain in Florida, likely along the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, as well as a lot of that moisture is going to fly up the East Coast, regardless of what happens with the intensity of the hurricane. And then, of course, thanks to our ridge and our slip and slide storm systems coming down off the Great Lakes, we're going to see lots more rain in Wisconsin, down through Indiana, Kentucky, over towards the Mid-Atlantic and, northeastern areas as well. And that's pretty much all the weather talk I have for you today. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry if you've noticed I've got a little bit of a cold or something. I don't know. It's summer. I don't know how to explain it. But, we're pushing forward here, and I do think we're going to have several more updates before this storm makes landfall in whatever form it does down there in the Gulf Coast region. Could be as little as a tropical depression. It could be remnants of what was a tropical depression, but it could also be a Category 3 or higher hurricane. We've seen how fast these storms can explode in the environment that we have down there this year. So that's why I'm kind of concerned about our tropical troubles that we're talking about, okay? Don't want to hype it up or anything, but it does look like something that we have to keep an eye on. So keep an eye on the weather if you're up here in the slight risk area today, and definitely keep an eye on the satellite and the NHC updates down there in Florida, all the way over to Louisiana, maybe even up the East Coast as well, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. It's hurricane season, so let's act like it, okay? And of course, if we need to, if there's going to be a hurricane landfall, we'll be going live on this channel, so make sure you subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss that. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye. Ooh.